Am I live? It looks like I'm live. Cool. I haven't done one of these in a while. So, few reasons for that. Number one, summer into fall were nuts. So, less and less time to do this. The other reason was simply I was busy, which was kind of the same thing as the first explanation. But as you may have noticed, my setup has changed a little bit. I have done a few major changes to my little home studio with the hopes of doing some videos from here. I recorded 3 today, sort of a fourth, but the fourth one is kind of this. So, which I'm going to do a segment in this live stream that I'm going to edit into a video because I want to talk about stuff. Now, so first thing you might notice is a much better camera. Now, this is twofold. First thing was I actually swapped the camera itself out. Where's my old one? Wow, so my original camera, still have it, still love it. Canon T2i. These things are ancient by today's standards, but have a very, very, very good sensor. They were the first Canon that could do 1080p, which at the time was, oh my God, 1080p. So, really good camera, and you can use it as a webcam. It's not officially listed though, so you end up with this weird 540p, but really, really good color and image quality thing when you use the Canon webcam utility, where right now, that's the only problem I run into with this one, is it does that every now and then. I need to figure out why. I think I have a timer on the thing. Unless there's a hand motion I'm doing that's taking photos, there's a possibility of that. But on my stand now, I have my Canon SL3. Better camera in almost every way. It's smaller, it takes better video and photo, more modern sensor, etc. But it does a proper 720p when plugged in USB. I can do technically up to 4K out of the HDMI on it, I believe. I know I can get a proper 1080p if I use a capture card, which I might do for certain videos, as well as you can do the remote camera operation, where on my computer, so I can have, a few things running on here, can be recording directly into it, and I can click, and I can record the audio to my computer, record video to the camera. It's connected to USB, so I can then dump the file on. It's just a better setup than what I had before. And as you can see, proper 720p, as well as a lens upgrade. I put on there, actually I can do this so I can show you it. I put on a 22 millimeter lens, and I'm very happy with it. Now we'll get into what I'm holding here. Oh, see the void. I'm holding a Samsung phone that I've somewhat retired. I was hoping to get rid of it, but I ended up accidentally keeping it too long, so now I can't. And through the link via Windows, you don't need a third-party app anymore. I can use this thing as a webcam. Now, it's a better webcam than you will see most webcams offer, right? If I point this back at myself with my studio lighting and whatnot, you can see this is better than most webcams out there, but not as good as the camera I've got on my stand. So why the heck do I have it there? Well, so I can do things like show off my next piece of upgrade that I did. But yeah, that camera really, really, really helps this guy up top here. But the lens is another big deal. That 22 millimeter prime lens, right? If you're doing this talking head kind of stuff, get yourself a prime lens if you're using a mirrorless or a DSLR. They usually come with a zoom lens, right? This is my 55, what was it, 10 to 55? 18 to 55. This is the stock lens that came with the camera. It's great. I use it very frequently when I'm taking photos and things like that. But this one, it's so much better. It takes in a lot more light. So as you can see, I'm very, very bright, despite the fact that one of the reasons that the phone camera is a bit grainy is it's actually really dark in this room right now. I've got one light up above me here. That's kind of it. And then a hue of a light going behind me just to kind of separate the background a little bit. Working on the whole streamer background thing. But yeah, that's one of the big changes that I made was this camera and that lens. The prime lens, not only do you get very, very, very good optics because they don't have to worry about the zooming factor on these. Make sure that cap stays on there. Must not have been clicked on. But yeah, anytime you zoom a lens or have a lens that can zoom, you run into a few things. One of the big ones with this one is to keep the cost down. It's not the best glass in general. And on top of that, the f-stop changes as you zoom in. So you have to set, if you want to use your zoom properly, big quotey fingers, you actually have to set your f-stop as high as it kind of goes on the lens so that when you zoom in, your picture doesn't get darker. A little bit annoying, right? This here, big old opening compared to this. So if you're not familiar, the lower the number, the better generally. It's not as cut and dry as that. But lower number means bigger opening and you get more light in, so you can generally have your camera work better in low light situations. I did a whole video on that recently, but this particular one has f2.8 or something like that. I have a 50 somewhere that I broke, unfortunately, that does a 1.8. The problem is a 50 is about there, where the lens I have now is about there, right? Did I nail it? Oh, no, it's even less of a zoom in. About there, right? You see how little that's zoomed in? That's the 18. That's 22. And on a camera like the one I've got here, this one has a crop on the sensor, so it's already a little bit zoomed in, right? So I'm about 2.5 feet from my camera. I would have to have my camera on like the other side of the room, especially once you start using 4K and things like that, because it crops the sensor even more on these cameras. It just becomes an unusable mess. So this 22 millimeter, I'm very, very happy with, but that's not all. As you may have also noticed, I've got this wonderful new microphone in front of me. It's not so much new. You've probably seen it in some of my videos. This is my SM7B. This is the overkill of overkill for somebody who doesn't make money doing YouTube videos yet. But I already owned it. I had it in my recording studio. I've used it on rap artists and on singers and on spoken word stuff, etc. But it only gets really pulled out of the locker every couple months because it's just not a very busy studio. So that combined with the fact that I can, move it from here to there. I was like, you know what? This thing needs to get some use. So I brought it home. And if you've ever used an SM7B, you will know they are a little bit gain hungry. So that's why if you go and you look around, a lot of people will recommend now the SM7DB. Clever naming. I actually like it. And that does wonders for this. Essentially, they put out an extra like 20 dB gain on the back end of it so that you don't have to crank your interface as much. Because some interfaces will work with an SM7B, but because you need so much gain, you have to turn it up so far, you get more and more noise the more you do that. And on inexpensive interfaces, it just doesn't sound good. So a lot of people, they buy this thing and they're like, man, this is supposed to be the best audio I've ever had, and it doesn't sound as good as my, Yeti. It's because it needs a lot of gain, right? It's a pro level piece of equipment it was designed at a time where the only people who would be plugging this thing in would be broadcasters, and the mixer boards they were using had preamps that could handle it, right? These things only started really getting use in the recording studio after, I believe it was Michael Jackson used one, the original SM7, not the SM7B, on Thriller, because it fit his voice. And then all of a sudden everybody wanted one in the studio because they kind of realized, oh, that's for more than just voiceovers. These are wonderful for voiceovers. That's the reason you see this mic on like Joe Rogan and stuff like that. But the mixer boards they're using in those professional settings have a lot more gain, right? My audio interface at the studio, I can plug this thing straight in and get more than enough volume. Here, I'm just using a little Steinberg CI1, not enough. So to do this thing, I have one of these. Where is it? Whoa, not the Snark, but the ART. This is the Pro Channel. This is a Pro Channel 1, and I love this thing. Now, as you can see, fairly dusty. It sits behind my computer monitor, so I'm not too worried, but this is just the nature of having a camera this close to it. It is a mic preamp with a compressor and an equalizer, and that is wonderful. Having them all built in is just great. I love it. And yeah, it lets me do a very hefty amount of gain. As you can see, when I talk right into it very hard on it, I can get a little bit of compression going. But generally speaking, if I'm back where I've been talking this whole time, it just kind of pops in every now and then on the compressor. I have my low cut set where I want it. My EQ has a slight low mid set to 80 hertz. Low doesn't matter because I've got all my lows under 65 cut out. Didn't touch highs, don't need to on this mic, etc. Right? Now the big advantage here is before I was doing that all through VSTs. Now I don't have to worry about that. I very seldom get any clipping or any weird artifacts. The one thing I have ran into, you can really see my beat to garbage Sennheisers there, but they are still working over a decade of use. Yeah, this preamp channel strip here, it just makes my process so much easier because if I'm recording directly through OBS, I have the same sound as if I'm recording directly to my DAW because it's all through the same thing. I don't have to try to recreate it, so it's really going to streamline my audio. So if I have to dub something over because say I'm running B-roll and I just want some audio over top of it, it'll sound like I recorded it at the same time. Wonderful, right? Everybody's heard cheap ADR done on YouTube videos and stuff where you can tell they've recorded it in the studio afterwards. Not a fan of it. This can let me avoid it. Now, do I recommend these? Kind of. On the... Let me switch over to myself here. This is basically what the video I'm going to be doing is going to be saying. So, spoilers for a video that's coming out soon. Maybe if you make money at this, I highly recommend getting something like a ART Pro Channel. I think they're on the 3. They are not cheap, right? In Canada, I think the Pro Channel 3 is like $500 or something like that. It is a hefty amount of money. However, if you're already spending hundreds of dollars on a microphone, if you're already spending, hundreds of dollars on a camera, a few extra $100 on making your audio that much better can be worth it, especially for, again, live streamers or YouTubers who are making money at this. If you're trying to do this as a hobby, essentially everything I've got going on this Pro Channel can be done in OBS via software, and it'll sound almost as good, if not in some cases better, because you can use, higher end, right? If instead of spending $500 on this Pro Channel, I went and bought $200 worth of plugins that were like the best ones in the world for blah, 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 blah. Yeah, it might sound actually a little bit better. But yeah, I am a big fan of this as analog gear. Now, the other thing to keep in mind, if you're ever looking at something like a channel strip, they pop up used all the time for not a lot of money. Reason being, they tend to get outgrown, right? I love having this Pro channel. They also make a voice channel. Um, Presonus makes something similar to this. Behringer has a really expensive option that I've heard good things about. If you're after a inexpensive, like I think it's just over like $100 kind of thing. Um, yeah, channel strips. They often, especially the less expensive ones, get outgrown in recording studios if they end up going and buying like a higher end preamp, right? This thing is a $500, or well, I paid about $200. I think, well, I think I ended up getting this for 100 in the end. I bought it for $300 for two of them. I sold one of them for $200 a few months later. Kept this one. So this is a $100 channel strip for me. 100% worth it. In my local buy and sell stuff, I really don't want to show my Facebook on stream just because people are weird. I have seen a Focusrite channel strip that has, EQ compressor preamp for about $100 used. Again, there is that Behringer one. Can I find it here? I'm still resetting up. So I've also done some major changes to my audio computer here. So we'll see here. Now, if I switch back to me here in the corner, I add. I'm going to move my OBS over to this screen. That over here. I've also done a vertical monitor here on my left, which I'm a big fan of now. Yeah, it's its own kind of thing. But what I need is add window capture. And then I move me here. Hey, there we go. Figuring it out. So studio and recording. I don't know if they'll have just preamps and channel strips. Here we go. And now channel strips. Now you'll notice that channel strips not a big category. Even here on Sweetwater. Again, I stress this. I have no affiliation with Sweetwater. You'll also notice some of these are, if you're new to this stuff, ridiculous. Almost $5,000 for a demo unit. That seems like a lot. But this is like top end studio, etc., right? $1,300 for this DBX one, right? Like this is what they're using when they're recording like Taylor Swift and stuff, right? So you don't need that. So we go here, instead of most popular, we go low to high. Everybody's favorite setting on everything. Now, this isn't a channel strip. I'm not sure why it's here. I mean, it kind of is. It has, so we've got mic gain. We've got a EQ. And then we have the same thing on the other side. Okay, so this is EQ, etc. Now be careful. This tube here has a light bulb behind it. Technically speaking, my ART that I'm running here is a tube preamp slash compressor. I think they even have a tube for the EQ. It is a much more legitimate integration of tube stuff. A lot of times, companies will just put a tube in the path somewhere and say, hey, there's a tube in the channel. That makes it awesome, right? And it's honestly to trick guitar players who think tubes are good. Like that's, there's nothing necessarily wrong with this preamp. It could be a really good preamp, but I really doubt the tube in it is doing anything because it's just, when you start actually looking at the circuit, it probably is there just for show. Which is why this actually is probably a much better option for the vast majority of people out there. Now, is my mouse showing up? Yay, my mouse is on here. Now, this probably what I would recommend to a lot of people. And I'm not affiliated in any way, like I said with Behringer. Technically speaking, I actually sell ART stuff, right? Because I am a dealer. I've sold some of their Oh, what was it? They still do a really nice crossover, and they actually have some really good preamp stuff. I'm really happy with. We've got an MPA in the studio. I quite like this channel. I really enjoy. But again, if you're doing a live stream, do you really need a channel that good? Probably not. We've got this here. We've got the low cut. This is really important. It gets rid of all the rumble. It gets a lot of that desk noise. You're probably hearing a bit of it, but compared to not having this low cut set is really important. You've got a preamp here. So this can do up to 60 dBs of gain, and there is some makeup gain elsewhere on here. So I wouldn't crank it all the way up to 60, even if you're using a mic that needs a ton of, because it's just you're gonna start to run into, like I said, some noise from cranking up that high. But this is the same thing with my Pro channel right now. I have it run so that it is adding gain in more than one spot, so I'm not pinning everything. But anyway, this has a compressor, de-esser. Now, enhancer kind of EQ-ish. So that's where I'm not as big a fan of this one, because it does some adjustment. A de-esser is nice to have, right? I don't have one of those running right now, but again, this microphone is pretty darn good for that type of stuff. But then expander slash gate. That is nice to have. I've turned my gate off because I was running into some problems where as soon as I moved a little bit away and stuff, my gate was overly aggressive, and I was using a digital one, and I couldn't really tell that was what was going on because I'm not direct monitoring, and I didn't see it on my view meters that, yeah, it just, I didn't like it. So having now an expander is nice to have. I would keep it set. I'm assuming somewhere on the back is this switch. I don't know where the button is to change this from a gate to an expander. The expander is better for most of what. Oh, you can't see it. I'm gonna vanish for a second. The expander slash gate here. There we go. Now you can see it. Now you're not seeing my mouse though. Weird. But you can see in the center-ish of this thing. Oh, that's why I needed to click into the screen again. Hey, now you can see me. I've been finding a gate is too abrupt when it comes to speaking. Where expanders, they pull the volume down. So when you turn your expander on or off, there is still, when it is technically on and it's getting rid of stuff, you can be heard. You're just quieter. So it makes for less abrupt, like the first thing that I say is a little bit quieter, but it's not vanished, right? So it tends to sound a little bit better. But then, the hum of my computer going on here doesn't, make as much of a difference. So yeah, this unit here, I think this will be good for this type of stuff, but not my ideal because you get more spending a bit more, right? Again, de-esser on this guy. Man, it's annoying that they put me. So I'm going to move myself up here. So this has, again, expander gate, enhancer, de-esser, compressor. Gee, I wonder what that Behringer was based off of. Yeah, this is spookily similar. We'll put it that way. But again, for live broadcast kind of stuff, again, 80 hertz bypass. We've got 60 dB gain here. We've got output gain of 10. Man, this is... I will be quiet as to not get sued because that can happen. It has happened. But yeah, the very similar units. DBX, generally speaking, I mean, you would assume at over twice the price, this is going to have a better preamp and stuff in it, but your mileage may vary, right? Again, for live streaming and stuff like that, the big difference, honestly, the reason why I would actually point somebody possibly to this more so than the other is if you get something like this, you don't need the audio interface. This has the USB out for like basically turning anything you plug into this into a USB mic. And at 140, that is very nice. As I mentioned before, so we got this PreSonus one. Now, the reason we see 3 of them is because they're selling like demo units and stuff. This is another one where I believe they have like a tube somewhere in the circuit, but I don't know how much I trust. Like at this price point, it's probably doing a little bit more, but you can add a little bit of warmth to it. The tube drive in this case is simply essentially a distortion circuit that you're blending in. So that's why it's 0 to 100. This isn't actually adding gain. But when you move into something like this, now we have a much more robust compressor. This is something I really like that PreSonus does. I don't know if I'm still a PreSonus dealer. A bunch of stuff got shifted around in terms of who carries what. So I'll just put the disclaimer out as if I am a PreSonus dealer, because I can't remember. Yeah, so having these adjustments. Now, a big one here is EQ or comp first is very handy to be able to switch between, right? So on mine, I believe I can adjust that as well. I can't actually remember. I don't think I can on mine. I think they added that in the, version 2. But these channel strips, being able to switch between having the compressor kick on before the EQ. So let's say you have a low frequency that is causing the compressor to turn on. You can reduce that frequency over here before it goes into the compressor, and that will end up giving you a bit of a better sound. Oh, that's also why. Why is it doing this to me? Get rid of that screen. Okay. Why did it make this so big? That would be why you couldn't see anything before. Interesting. I don't know why it did that. OBS automatically popped this in. Oh, I know why. Because my screen is 1440p and I'm streaming at 1080, so it probably put out the full 1440. You're watching the sausage get made. Enjoy. But yeah, so that's really handy to have, being able to switch between it, because then you can tame some stuff. Now, the auto is for, I believe, the attack and release. Gain reduction to meter, that is changing what you're seeing on here. That's something I do like about the ART model, is it shows you both at the same time. I have 3 sets of metering on this, which I can show you again, because you can see there's the little VU meter at the top there. That is like that analog stick kind of thing. Hard to see with the way that my camera is auto setting. But then we have some other aspects down below it, right? So the metering on this isn't as robust, but you can adjust what you are metering. That's kind of nice, because again, OBS has metering built in. So being able to see your gain reduction to me is more important on the unit itself. But yeah, so PreSonus has this guy here. It has the instrument in on the front, which is handy. It has the mic in on the back. And yeah, this is where you start to move up to some more features and stuff. It's got a peak limiter kind of showing you at the end there. I don't know if that's a button or not. Again, this is just going by my memory and looking at the darn thing. And then we get to basically what I have. I have the version 1 of this guy. they have done a lot of changes since then. So they have it now, signal chain, you can adjust, right? Because this is version 3, I've got the version 1. You've got a lot of settings. You can go tube or optical in the compressor, which oh, the original you could do that on. Interesting. I always forget about that. I usually leave it. So the optical compressor is usually faster, where the tube is a little smoother. Um, they've gone away from the knob on a knob for adjusting some of this stuff. They've kept the low cut. Now this impedance setting thing, this was a big deal on the MPA preamps, right? That this preamp of that they have on here is based off of is their tube preamp from ART. That matters a lot more if you're dealing with dynamic microphones in particular, but more precisely getting into ribbon microphones. Ribbon microphones are really, really impedance sensitive, so you can get a better sound if you can adjust it. On the MPA, it's adjustable with a knob. It looks like here they just had 2 settings, which they probably just said, hey, this is the one almost everybody uses, and then max, in terms of like if people are dialing it in. Gain plus 20. Again, if you're using a regular handheld microphone, make sure that's on, or off, sorry. But for something like an SM7, it is just really nice to be able to click that on. And it looks like they put a lot more of the gain right at the front on this new one. And then, again, my VU or visualization, like my metering, I keep saying VU. VU technically is just this guy here. My metering, camera did that click thing again. I don't know why it does that every X amount of time. But my metering is better on the older one, sort of. They just set this thing up so that it's like you don't need both this VU meter and a meter underneath showing you the exact same information. And then they have the gain reduction underneath. That I think is a more standard way of doing it. On my unit, on the original, you could adjust it, right? So tube character / gain reduction, and I've got so when I really get in, you can see it going on underneath. Unnecessary. So I think this new metering looks better. And then yeah, like you've got adjustment for switching back and forth between whether you want your compressor or your EQ happening first. You can bypass things so you can see how it sounds with or without. And on the metering, you can do input or output. So that is handy as well. Yeah. So like I said, the ART ones I'm a big fan of. I have one myself. I just have the older version. And yeah, having a robust input channel like this for live streaming or video creation, things like that, you can get a much more consistent, higher quality sound. But it costs money, right? Like this one is $400. That's not cheap. As I mentioned, look for these on the used market. I've seen a few here. Like if you go and you type in channel strip into Facebook Marketplace, what happens to a lot of people is they end up starting off with something like this. They buy a $500 preamp, where it's just a preamp, and then they start using VSTs for everything, or they get some outboard compressors. Right? So you can find these pretty often for not a whole lot of money. I've seen, like I said, some older models for like $100 and stuff, and that's going to be more than enough for the vast majority of people out there, because it just ends up getting just outdated for that particular studio. Don't bother jumping to like you don't. I want one of these. Don't get me wrong. I would love one of these for my recording studio. I wouldn't use that for my videos, right? Like if I was trying to spend my money wisely to get the best audio and video balance? No. If I was just doing voiceovers, something like this, right? Now the voice channel, this one they've had this thing out for a long time. I'm surprised they're not on a version 2 of it, but I don't know if they've had any real complaints about how good this thing sounds. This is sort of the bigger brother to the Pro channel, but it's specific for voice. So you have much more robust controls specifically around voice, right? Like I was saying about the other one, we've got our impedance control to get the most out of your microphone. Similar now, they've moved all of the gain to the very beginning. Like I said, my particular one, only 26 dB of my gain starts here, although I technically 46 dB because I have a gain that they actually have it labeled a pad switch here where it's removing 20 dB gain, but mine is a boost of 20 dB. It doesn't really matter. They have expander / gate capability. They've added in, again, you can switch, unlike mine, but similar to the newer version of mine, you can switch what order things happen in. Everything about this particular unit is made for voice recording. I wouldn't probably use this for a singer. I would more be looking at something like this for speech. But again, you're paying quite a bit of money for it. So if you're making money at doing YouTube videos or live streams and things like that, something like a voice channel or a studio channel, this type of stuff, can be very good, right? Like if I hop on good old eBay here and I look up channel strip, strip. Yeah, 135 or 132 Canadian. This is in the States, so I'm willing to guess this is probably about $100 American, buy it now, and then $20 shipped to your door. These did not have the best reputation in the studio world because almost everybody said, well, instead of spending like $200 or $300 on something like this, go get yourself a really good preamp and then use a VST for your compression. That has almost always been the recommendation, right? Instead of spending $700 on this channel strip, go buy a $500 preamp. You'll probably get more for your money. But for $100, this is brilliant, right? You will get a compressor, you get a bit of equalization, not a ton, and a nice preamp compared to what you probably have in your current situation. And again, we have that DBX one that we saw. Like I said, they go for really cheap after they've been used a bit. These Joe Meek ones used to be way cheaper. I don't know what happened. Somebody really thinks that these things are worth a whole lot more than they used to be, because these Joe Meeks used to be like $100. I don't know how they're $400 now. Hey, it's my unit. Who in their right mind is asking $500 for the older version? Why would anybody pay that? Did they say? Are they used, works great, comes with power cable? Don't even try to explain why their first generation is selling for more than the new one. This is the problem with eBay right now, is largely because of the amount of fees that are associated with selling on it, and that there are just a ton of other options. A lot of people have just started selling stuff locally, so you tend not to see the best deals on here anymore. But yeah, like I said, there's a few of these for like $100, man. Like, if you are watching this video and you're thinking, oh, maybe a channel strip would help out my situation, wonder what I should do, go on eBay right now. Pending it says in the description that this thing works, get this thing. Like, it's missing the knob cover for drive. the compressor here. It's also a very minimalistic compressor, so be aware of that. I don't mind that though, especially for set and forget beginner usage. It's nice to have extra adjustability on a compressor, but the vast majority of people just turn the knobs until they see a little bit of gain reduction and then they call it a day. But yeah, I highly recommend a inexpensive channel strip if you are, again, making money at this or you have some money to burn. It's not one of those must-haves, because everything about this, other than the preamp, I can do in the box, in my computer, right? If you have a computer that can do that, just do it, right? OBS comes with compressors and stuff, and if you don't want to get the OBS ones, go and download the what was it called? Ria plugs from Reaper, and you can use them in OBS, and they work and sound wonderful. Do it. Trust me, it's good. If you want to not have to do that, then yeah, go spend $100 on this. Right now, if that $100 means you are going to have a worse camera or worse lighting or a worse microphone, don't get something like this. But if you already have a good microphone, you already have a good camera, and you're trying to think like, man, what can I do to just up my game a little bit? Something like these channel strips can be really good. They can just be wonderful. Anyway, yeah, just wanted to do a quick live stream. Like I said, I ended up not recording any of that for future discussion, but I am going to go and quickly do a video on this studio stuff. So there'll be a more succinct 10-minute or so, just like, hey, here's what I put into mine and whether I recommend it or not. But yeah, if you like this kind of stuff, like, subscribe, all that. I should mention that way sooner in any of these, but chances are if you're seeing this, you're already a subscriber, because that's just kind of how it works. But I like doing a live stream from time to time. I should be back more often now on these Mondays. Yeah. Don't know what the topics are yet, so we'll see. I love CPU usage, 0% on OBS. That is actually impressive. I have a new CPU in my computer too. I'm very happy with it. 5700 X3D. Yeah. But you out there, thanks for watching. New videos coming soon. Recorded like 3 today, but my gate was too strong, so I recorded them technically yesterday, but I had to redo them today. So now my gate is off, and you can hear my computer humming in all of its glory. But I will see you next time.